Welcome to another edition of Jazz Smack, where tonight the Jazz hosted the Chicago Bulls and pulled out a squeaker in double overtime. Let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, NBA and Utah Jazz basketball.
So the Jazz, they almost matched their 152-point outing of a few games ago with 150 points tonight in a double overtime game against the Chicago Bulls. Now, this one was certainly exciting. Some big shots made by both teams going down the stretch at the end of overtime, at the end of the regulation. And it went down to the wire. It was basket to basket, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Heck of an exciting finish. Keyonte made a huge three to finish him out, and that was the ball game. Heck of a finish by the Utah Jazz and a great shot by Keyonte to get the win. But overall, this was one of those games where the Jazz came out and they shot a ton of threes to open the game. They finished the first half going 8 for 29 from three. The first quarter, I believe they ended the first quarter going 4 for 16 from three, and they were really married to that three-point shot in the first half. Second half changed drastically. In the second half, plus the two overtimes, the Jazz shoot 20 threes, and they made a far better percentage. And that was kind of the key to the game. They didn't rely so much on the three that second half. They start taking the ball to the basket. They got to the free throw line, and that helped them, and it helped with the percentages. And quite frankly, I think that was the big key to this game, was not relying so heavily on that three in that second half and actually getting something more inside of the three-point line, and especially getting to the free throw line.
Yeah, I think what I find really interesting about this is, first, let me talk about Keyonte. When we watch Keyonte, you and I watched Keyonte in the Summer League, we were so impressed with how dynamic that guy was. He hit a shot very similar to he hit at the very end of the game, kind of from the foul line extended over the three-point line, with somebody in his face, where he just kind of, didn't take a dribble but went up over the top of him and nailed it. It was like a massive shot. And putting aside what his percentage was for the rest of the game, you still got to have the guy that hits the shot at the end, and he did that. Lauri missed a few coming down. Like a turnaround that almost went in was a beautiful shot, but didn't drop in. So it was a massive shot by Keyonte. The interesting thing about the three-point shot for both of these teams tonight is that I lost my numbers. Chicago shot 38% from the three-point line, 50 three-point attempts, and the Jazz shot 36.7, and both of those, you would say, are above average NBA three-point percentages, right? So they're good. Last year, 36.8 was the NBA average. So both of them shot a lot of three-pointers in two overtime games, but both shot respectively. But I agree with you that you and I are both about diversified offense, not just shooting three-point shots. And I honestly think the biggest strength of the offensive game of the Jazz this year is getting to the free throw line. And you don't get to the free throw line a lot shooting three-point shots. Yeah, I know Keyonte got the three free throws at the end by a boneheaded foul on one of the Chicago players, but the reality is get to the free throw line by driving to the hoop.
Yeah, and Keyonte has learned, the way he shoots the three, when he's completely open and nobody around, is different than when he shoots the three when there are people around, because he's spreading his legs. He's spreading his legs and trying to draw the foul. And he even did that on that last three that he made in the double overtime. He kind of kicked his legs out trying to get contact when anybody got close. And I don't blame him for doing that. Quite frankly, if the officials are going to allow you to do that, you got to do that. Steph does it too. There's a lot of players that do it now. So to watch these guys do that to try and draw fouls on three, but it's still, even with the way they're calling this now, as those fouls just simply were not called in decades past. I mean, the officials didn't call those fouls. But the way they're calling them now, I I think the players have to take advantage of that as long as they're doing that. But still, it's not as effective as going to the basket, trying to get body contact in the paint area, within 15 feet of either side of the basket on the sides. It's not as effective is doing that, shooting the threes, because a lot of the players playing defense now know how closely they're calling it and they know the players who are purposely spreading their legs and purposely doing the quick shot like Steph does, trying to draw attention from the officials. So still, yes, we like to see the players use that to their advantage above the three-point line. But yeah, getting to the free throw line within the three-point line is what we want to see, because that, no matter what you shoot from the three-point line, it's never going to be as effective as team free throw percentage is nearly 80%. That's 80%. You're not going to shoot that from the field. You're not going to shoot that, as an effective field goal percentage from the three-point line. That 80% is vitally important when you want to be really good. Shea is a master of this. He baits people into fouls. He gets to the free throw line where he shoots like 90%. That 90% is unequaled in any other part of the game.
Yeah, the part I find so fascinating about how teams defend the Jazz is that if you were a defensive team against the Jazz and you were playing Isaiah Collier, you were playing Keyonte George, you were playing Kyle Filipowski, how he shot the ball this year, how would you defend those players? And let me put it in context. Keyonte hit a big shot at the end, massive shot. Very impressed with it. Do you think that Chicago played good defense on that play?
I think it's okay. I quite frankly, that's the shot I want the Jazz to take. I mean, in that situation, if we're just looking at the percentages, and I know the game is all about analytics now, and quite frankly, this is one of those things where the analytics is kind of working against a lot of these coaches who do this. In the Jazz, in that situation, all they needed was a basket, any basket. So shooting kind of a contested three, I think that's almost best case scenario for the Bulls in that situation. Personally, I would rather them do that. I would rather them do that than try and get a foul or something like that, or some other. I mean, if you're forcing a team to shoot a contested three when all you need is any basket, that's a win. So, yeah, I think the Bulls, from a defensive standpoint, I'm not a huge Billy Donovan fan, but from a defensive standpoint, I don't really have anything against what the Bulls did there.
Oh, and that was exactly my point. I completely agree with that. And my point was, if you're, and this is where, look, it took the NBA and Billy Beane gets credit for doing it in Major League Baseball, and then leading the analytics all overall. It probably wasn't Billy Beane that first did it, right? It was probably somebody else, but Billy Beane gets credit for it. But the reality is it took the NBA 50 years to get these analytics in. I still don't believe that the NBA coaches are all incredibly bright, that they pick up on like how to do the, analytics and apply the analytics. Because if I'm defending a team like the Utah Jazz, the reality is I look at what the players are not good at, and you try to let them do that, right? Which means if you're guarding Isaiah Collier and you're guarding Keyonte, how they've shot the ball through their careers, you let them shoot, right? You try to get a hand in their face. You try not to get, in their landing area that they get 3 free throws, but you let them shoot. And honestly, even though I think Kyle's going to be a fantastic shooter, he hasn't shot well this year, so I do the same with him. So, it's really interesting. Like, where I kind of look at the NBA this year, it kind of surprises me is, why aren't these coaches looking at the analytics? Like, Keontae's been lights out from the free throw line this year. I mean, his percentage is like he's Steph Curry from the free throw line. It's amazing how well he's shooting the free throw line. The last thing you want to do is put him on the free throw line. You want him to hit the contested 3-point shot, right? Where he went 3 for 10 for night. So massive shot at the end. But I think Chicago played good defense on that. It's just like, look, you're going against the best players in the league. Sometimes they're going to knock it down, right? And Keyonte, give him credit for that. That's one thing he's shown, is he has a tendency to hit the big shot.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And Lauri tonight also played phenomenally well. He almost goes for 50 once again. He drops 47. Yes, it's in double overtime, but he shoots a reasonably decent percentage. He doesn't hit his regular season percentages, but he's close. So he had a really good game. He drops 47 on good percentages. Another phenomenal game by Lauri. We need to give him all the credit in the world because, quite frankly, Lauri carried the team for a major portion of that game. Had he not been, making significant shots throughout that game, the Jazz would have been in a world of hurt. So Lauri is a big factor in the Jazz being in this game and giving them an opportunity to win in the end. So Lauri, all the credit in the world. Another fantastic game shooting the basketball, and he played huge minutes, 46 minutes tonight. Man, that's a ton of minutes for Lauri.
Yeah, let me ask you a question on Lauri because, he's getting a lot of credit as he absolutely should. There's no question about it. Last year in what we kind of criticize the NBA rankings, whether it's, whatever one, like Locke has one himself to do, where he dropped to like 50th player. And I know this is just an opinion. How do you think he's playing? Like if you're just going to say 10 to 20, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, which range do you put Lauri in, how he's playing this year? And keeping in mind is that if you're the opposing team, you have one objective when you play the Jazz, shut Lauri Markkanen down, right? And now it's probably cut down, try to get the ball out of Isaiah Collier's hands because of just how talented he is as a point guard, but it's shutting down Lauri. So where do you put him this year? Because he is playing like lights out as a basketball player.
Yeah, I think he's he's solid in that 20 to 30 range so far this season. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not having his best statistical year rebounding the basketball to this point, and some of those other things he's done in the All-Star year, he was far better rebounding the ball than he is this year. But there's a lot of factors in how the Jazz are trying to fit things together early in the season, and those numbers may improve over the season. Actually, I expect Lauri's rebounding numbers to improve over the season. He's got off to a slow start in that area, but again, the Jazz are trying to play with the lineups and play with how they're doing it and trying to get better defensively, and that's not exactly helping Lauri rebounding the basketball. But all those other offensive numbers, Lauri has been really good. So he's solidly in that 20 to 30 range, in my opinion, so far this year. I mean, he went into tonight scoring 29.3 points per game. I mean, that's on good percentages, both from the field and from three and from the free throw line. Yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, in that All-Star season, he had other players, right? I mean, he had other guys to take the pressure off of him. This year, it's a bunch of young players. Look, yeah, okay, you got Svi and you got a few others, but Walker was a rookie, wasn't he, at that season, or was he a second?
Mm-hmm.
He was a rookie. So, he has played so well. Like his one-on-one games improved. Like that fall-away shot, yeah, he did hit one of those to win a game in that year, but the reality is he didn't hit a lot of those, right? I mean, he's playing like lights out. I agree. Other than rebounding, and the percentages are a bit down, but last time I checked before this game, and he shot like 35.5% from three in this game. He got back up to 39, so he's dropped a little bit after this game, but he's not in his normal 40%, which is kind of Lauri's consistently. But his numbers are not bad other than the rebounding. In fact, they're great other than the rebounding. So he has really played well. Everything that we thought of as like his contract was above his production, all of that's been erased. I'm sure there are so many teams calling about Lauri Markkanen just because, like, what a luxury to have that guy. Knockdown shooter, gets it up in a hurry, never brings the ball down, 7 feet tall, can handle the ball, better passer this year. I mean, what a great player.
Yeah, and the Jazz certainly are going to be fielding all sorts of calls on him, and we'll see. We'll see if something happens with him. I mean, there's always the possibility if the Jazz get an offer they can't refuse that they will accept that offer. But that's I doubt if that offer comes now. I think it'll come maybe a couple months from now. I don't think that I don't foresee Lauri going anywhere early in the season anyway. But another thing that we've talked a lot about, and we would like to see Isaiah Collier is the leader of the offense a lot more with the ball in his hands, and it seems like that's the direction that Will is actually headed. I mean, we're seeing Isaiah more and more running the offense, a ball in his hands, and when he's in the game, for the most part, Keyonte is playing off ball. So tonight, for instance, if we look at Isaiah's numbers, I mean, he plays, yes, it's a double overtime game, but Isaiah plays 36 and a half minutes in this game. In that 36 and a half minutes in the game, he's playing on ball. That means in any of those minutes where Keyonte is in the game, Keyonte is playing off ball, which we both consider a better situation for both of those players and the Jazz and all the rest of the Jazz players, quite frankly. I think it helps all the rest of the Jazz players with that direction, moving in that direction. And it seems like Will is heading back in that direction is how he finished last season.
Yeah, I think so. And we've talked about we're going to look at advanced analytics, but we wanted to, we didn't want to be unfair and look at it after a few games. We're going to look at it in 2 to 3 games when they're 15 games under the belt, and we're going to take a look at that. And you and I have already looked at it, so we're kind of getting a preview of what we're going to talk about, assuming it stays the same, is that if you look at the percentages of how these players play, the rest of the team plays when they're in, it's really instructive to see that. And just one I would bring up right now, and I know I just said I wasn't going to do this, is assist to turnover ratio. Top on the Jazz, Isaiah Collier, 3.1. And this was before the game. It goes Isaiah, Kyle Anderson, Svi, Walter Clayton Jr. that got a DNP tonight at 2.3, Kevin Love, 2.3, and then Keyonte at 2.2. And honestly, if you think about above, for a point guard, above 2 is good. Average is about 2.5, based upon the research I found, 2.5. Elite is like over 3. So if you're above 2, you're still doing well from an assist to turnover, but over 3 is elite, and Isaiah, honestly, he's elite. Now he's not elite in some other areas, but he's, as passing the ball, he's elite. Yeah,
he's really good. And I still contend that defensively, at the point of attack, I think he's the best guy on the Jazz that they can throw at the other team. I mean, is he awesome? No, but he's certainly the best on the Jazz, and I think he can be. He has a potential to be really good in that area. So that's another reason why I really like having him in the game. So those are the numbers for the night, and quite frankly, there were some other players. Brice shot the ball really well tonight. I mean, he scores 16 points. He goes 4 for 7 from 3, 5 for 9 from the field overall. So Brice, he played just under 28 minutes in the game. So Brice, a terrific night shooting the ball. Kyle Filipowski, a terrific night shooting the ball in his 21 minutes of play time. He scores 8 points, 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 4 for 7 from the field. So again, and Isaiah too. Isaiah goes 4 for 6 from the field. It seems like he's trying to avoid shooting the threes for the most part in like elective threes. Yes, if he's forced into it, he'll take it. But in terms of like choosing to shoot a 3 rather than doing something else, it seems like he's doing the something else purposely to try and get better shot selection and keep his percentages up. And quite frankly, it's working. And he shot the ball well from the free throw line too, going 8 for 11. So again, Isaiah scores 16 points and has 9 assists. I mean, again, really solid numbers in that 36 and a half minutes of playing time. So yeah, there were other players that helped. It wasn't just about Lauri, it wasn't just about Keyonte, but other guys had good nights too to put the Jazz in a position to win this double overtime game.
Yeah, and even though Kyle only got 21 minutes, 9 rebounds in the 21 minutes. Yeah. So, that's the thing that we, look, Kyle hasn't shot the ball extremely well this year. I think that he's trying to find his fit on the team. We know he can shoot the basketball. There's no question about it. But he's a great passer. I think he's focusing. My guess is what's happening to Kyle is he's so conscious about his defense that's like taken away from the rest of his game, that he's focusing on that. But the reality is that's what he should be focusing on, because that's the thing that will keep Kyle off the court. So I'm really happy about that. Like, to me this year, if he really focuses on defense and plays rebounds, that's what we want him to do. Because I have no doubt Kyle has an amazing offensive bag. I have no doubt that he's going to shoot a three-pointer at a high percentage. But I want to get him on the court, and I know he needs to work on those other things to be there. And honestly, you don't want to see a stat line where Kyle's playing and he's got 5 rebounds, right? You want him to have 8 to 10, and he had that tonight. So I was really happy with that.
Yeah, I think Kyle has the ability to help a team considerably. I'm still not sure if he's a 35-minute a game guy on a title team, but I think he can be a better version of Kelly Olynyk, because I think that he can play defense better than Kelly could. Kelly has a lot of attributes that he contributes to a team, and that's why Ainge specifically went out and got Kelly that first year and brought him in, because he wanted to be a positive influence on the team, off the court, on the court, in the locker room, etc. I think Kyle can be a better version of Kelly on the court, because I think that, quite frankly, he's a better athlete than Kelly. Yet he passes the ball really well. He handles it really well. He shoots it well. I mean, Kelly shot it really well at Gonzaga, but and that has transferred over to the NBA. But Kyle, I think he has all the ability in the world to shoot it in a similar fashion to the way Kelly shoots it. So I think it's there for Kyle. And as long as he continues to work at it, work really hard at it, I think there's a real future with him long term in the NBA as a positive player. Quite frankly, is just a guy you want on your team to play whatever minutes, whether it's off the bench or in the starting lineup, if he continues to improve.
Yeah, I'm more bullish on him than you are. Like, I have been alarmed when I've seen him get blown by multiple players. I agree that what people say about his defense is real. He just gets completely blown by sometimes by some players. But I don't think it's fair to compare him to Kelly Olynyk, because Kyle's offensive bag is night and day versus Kelly Olynyk. I mean, he's got a turnaround jump shot. He's got jump hooks. He can take somebody off the dribble that Olynyk couldn't do. He has a spin move. I mean, he's got so much. But what's going to keep him off the court is his defense. And so, to me, I think he's got it. Now, do I know he's going to be? Of course I don't, right? He's got to, if he can't stay in front of anybody, then he can't play. But, to me, other than, there's a few guys that I think have a tremendous offensive game. Ace has shown he's got a tremendous offensive game, even though it's rudimentary at this point. I think Walt has a tremendous offensive game, and I think that Kyle has a tremendous offensive game. And, of course, Lauri does, but I think Lauri's game is still limited, right? I think he's exceptional at some things, but then there's some things he's going to do. But I think those other 3 guys just have like such a skilled offensive game that's very diverse. So I am very bullish on him. But I am alarmed sometimes when he gets blown by, and consistently. And somebody I was listening to Locke, which he was right on. Minnesota, when they played the Jazz, they went relentlessly after Kyle. It was like one guy after another. And for some reason, Kyle was guarding Ant. Like, how, what's coaching gets Kyle guarding Ant? Like, that's not fair to anybody in the NBA, let alone Kyle. But they just went at him over and over and over again. And teams are going to do that until he improves.
Yeah. This is where the automatic switching comes into play, which is, I know that's a really easy defensive scheme to coach, obviously, but man, it puts your bigs into a world of hurt. So there is I want to go on to some other things too. So the Jazz, in a double overtime game tonight, they commit only 9 turnovers. Now, 9 turnovers, and we know the Jazz have a tendency to turn the ball over a lot. Quite frankly, going into tonight, the Jazz were the second poorest in the league at turning the ball over. That's 17 a game. So tonight, in a double overtime game, only committing 9 turnovers, that's a big win. That's a huge win, a huge step forward for the team, and we hope that they can replicate more of that moving forward than the 17 turnovers, on average that they commit per game. So again, that's a terrific effort by the Jazz, only committing those 9 turnovers in a double overtime game. I mean, if they turn it over at their normal pace, there's no way they're in this game. So again, credit to the guys for taking care of the ball tonight.
Yeah, actually, I just looked it up in Google's AI. The fewest turnovers before this game, there was 2 games with 11. So this was shocking, and hopefully this is a trend. I mean, hopefully Will's doing something, the team's doing something that this is a trend, because defense and turnovers have been the issues the last, 2 years. And that has to change. So it was really encouraging tonight to see the lower turnovers.
Yeah, and another one of those things related to turnovers, this is just an NBA stat, but related to turnovers, the Jazz are not good at forcing turnovers either. They struggle in that area. And the Jazz have one player in the top 50 at this point, which I found interesting looking at the statistics. In the top 50 in steals, the Jazz have one player to this point in the season, and that player is Jusuf Nurkic. He's like 12th in the league in steals per game. And we know how much Jusuf, Nurk is constantly reaching. His guy gets the ball anywhere in the post. He's always reaching around, trying to get a deflection or anything. And quite frankly, more of the Jazz need to do that to try and create more turnovers. So again, related to the turnovers, but on the other side of it, and Nurkic is the one Jazz player in the top 50 in steals per game to this point in the season, which is quite interesting.
Well, let me give you one stat to kind of end on. So we said, like you and I, you made this point before, which I agree with. You can't look at all the time single game plus minus, right? Because maybe you come in at a time when the team just loses its lead, right? And then you have a really negative plus minus because you were in at that time, right? But if you look at the Jazz overall this year, you would expect nobody has a good plus minus. Why? Because they have they have a losing record, right? They have a negative point differential. They're not going to have a positive plus minus really anywhere on the team. So that's the backdrop of what I want to say. But if you look over the season, who do you think is at the top of the plus minus for the Utah Jazz, and who do you think is at the bottom of the plus minus for the Utah Jazz? Because I think over the course of a season, you could say, look, there should be some tendencies of who's adding the most and like who's causing an issue. And I think it's very instructive if you look at these. So that's the and hopefully you haven't looked at them, so you give me your best shot. Because honestly, until I looked at them, I would have guessed wrong. But who do you think is at the top? Who do you think is at the bottom?
Well, yeah, I haven't looked at it. I've been trying to avoid looking at any of that. You obviously go with Lauri as the top, just throw it out there, because I have no idea and I haven't even given it any thought. If I gave it some thought, maybe I'd come up with a different answer. But off the top of my head, I'll just say Lauri, and I'm sure that's not right.
Well, it's not right, but it's sort of right. Let me tell you the top 5, and it's sort of right because you have to take some of these guys out because they haven't played enough. Cody's number 1 at the plus minus of 3. Walker's number 2 at a plus minus of 2.8. Elijah's number 3 at a plus minus of 2.5. I think you would have to say you got to take all those guys out because they haven't played enough, right? I mean, that's not really fair that you'd even put them in. Kyle is next at 1.2, and then Lauri's at a minus 0.6. So I think that if you take out the 3, you're dead on. Like, he's second to Kyle, and I think Kyle has some nuances. He hasn't played that much either. So Lauri, as you would expect, is right at the top of that. So let's go down to the bottom, and who do you think then is at the bottom of the plus minus rankings for the Utah Jazz? And let me see. Tell like the bottom 4. I'm looking at the bottom 4. Who do you think is at the bottom 4 of the Utah Jazz?
Walt and Ace.
So Ace is the worst at a minus 8.8. Walt is not in there. And one of the guys in there I think you should throw out too is Taylor, because he also hasn't played enough. And boy, we could have really used Taylor tonight, right?
Yeah.
I think we would have. It was a real struggle, I think, because we don't have Taylor in, who could have played some defense. So Taylor's in there. Ace is the most negative. That's got to change as the season goes on. We think it will change, but it's not surprising that he's down there. But Nurk is down there at fourth worst at a minus 3.7. And then second worst is one that I think is very instructive, Keyonte at minus 4.6. So last year, the worst plus minus on our team was Keyonte. And over the course, that's over the course of a season, right? Over the course of a season. And this is over 13 games now, but Keontae's second to worst, also on that plus minus. So you can't look at an individual game, but I think you start to look, and I think that's one of the things we'll look at in 3 to 4 games to see if any of that has changed. But that's really, I find that a very interesting stat.
Yeah, without question. And that's definitely some of the stuff that I plan to look over over the coming weeks as we get more and more games underneath us and get more and more of a representative sample of what we're looking at. But I'm actually not shocked at any of those players being, I would expect it with Ace because he had such a struggle at the start of the season. Mm-hmm. And the officials tonight with Ace fouling him out in 10.5 minutes. I mean, one of those things with Ace, I hope that this doesn't impact the way he tries to play defense in terms of physicality and intensity that he plays defense with. Because quite frankly, over time, I think that the officials, if you start out playing like hard-nosed, intense defense, I think it helps you over time. Because quite frankly, I look at somebody like Dylan Brooks, and I think he gets away with a lot more than he would otherwise because officials know what he's going to do. They expect him to do what he's going to do, and they're not going to just foul him out with touch fouls. So, and quite frankly, I hope that Will Hardy tells him this. If you foul out now, you foul out now, but this is going to help you later on, in maybe not next year, but 3 years from now, whatever, when it's really important that you're able to really impact the game defensively, that you need to kind of get a reputation with the officials rather than just kind of playing it softer to help yourself right now so you don't get in foul troubles in these early games. So I hated to see Ace go out in 10.5 minutes with fouls, but I just hope it doesn't impact the way he plays defense in terms of the intensity and physicality that he plays with moving forward this season.
Yes, I was going to say Draymond Green too. He's got a reputation. Yep. Yeah, he gets more technical fouls, I think, than anybody, right? It wasn't he leading the league or, second in the league, and he's not leading the league. And Dylan Brooks may be the other guy that's in there. But the reality is he gets away with murder on the court. Yeah. But he's, other than Steph, which over time, this guy's incredible. He made Klay Thompson. I'm not saying Klay Thompson is a bad player. I'm not saying Klay Thompson is not an all-star, but he made Klay Thompson. That guy puts so much pressure on defense with his moving around and his shooting ability. But the second guy on that team is Draymond Green. I mean, he sets the whole defensive tone for a team that often was the best defense in the league. I mean, it was incredible. So he got away with murder. But the thing I would say with Ace, this guy has so much confidence. I can't imagine it, honestly, ever impacting him. That's the thing that's great about Ace. He's coming in there and shooting with confidence, playing with confidence. I don't think it's going to change him. I am like thoroughly impressed with like his mentality, how he approaches things, how he's unselfish, like all these things that we heard Ace was or wasn't is exactly the opposite when you see him play. So I honestly don't think it's going to affect him, but it would have been great to see Ace out there too, right? Playing. Yeah. We really, yeah. I mean, Lauri would have got fewer shots. Keyonte would have gotten fewer shots, and that would be a good thing because we'd have another scorer on the team other than, I guess, Sensabaugh got some shots too. But we needed him tonight, and it's too bad that he was sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I was looking forward to seeing him play in this game, and then it just didn't work out. I mean, the 10.5 minutes with 6 fouls, I mean, that's rough. That's a rough night. But, you go through learning experiences. we're playing the long game with Ace, and so these early games really aren't that important. It's just it's just about improving and effort and those type of things. So we'll see what happens in the coming games. But anyway, anything else for tonight? Or should we call it quits?
No, Chicago's off to Denver tomorrow night. So boy, Chicago's started 6-1, I think, and now lost 5 in a row.
Yeah.
And good luck tomorrow and on a back-to-back in Denver. I feel for them, but I told you this. I'm thoroughly impressed with Giddey. He's a real player. I think he's a real player. Kobe White's a real player. They don't. I don't know if they have a lot of other real players, but they got a couple of guys to build around that. I would still be nervous if I was a Chicago fan, but at least you got some guys to give you some hope. So it was good to see. It was good to see them in, and cool uniforms too. But good luck in Denver.
Yeah, and quite frankly, Chicago hasn't been good for a long time. I still think they need a coaching change. I've continued to believe that, and I still think they need some roster situation. The roster situation needs to change some. But Kobe has played better than I thought he would coming out of Carolina. Buzelis is off to a decent start as an NBA player. And Josh Giddey is clearly the leader of that team. And Kobe, this was his first game of the season. He was on a minutes restriction tonight. He clearly went way over that, and he's not going to play back-to-backs for initially since coming back, so he's not even going to play in Denver tomorrow. Oh, the Bulls, losing 5 in a row now, that's rough. I do like watching Bulls broadcasts, quite frankly, because I think Stacey King is one of the better color commentators in the league. In all honesty, I think that broadcast team in Chicago is one of the best in the NBA. It's one of my favorite to listen to. So I was really thrilled that the Jazz were playing the Bulls tonight. And of course, I listened to, as I usually always do, the road broadcast team, because I think it gives me a more rounded view of what's going on with each of these teams. So I get a more inside look at what's happening with the other teams in the league.
Yeah, and I agree with you. They got off some bad contracts, and I think that Chicago has a long way to go. Hopefully, they got all their draft picks. I think they do. They're going to have to be bad for a while, just like the Jazz do, to get some draft picks. But at least they're turning the corner and have some hope now that they're going in the right direction. So, to me, that I like. I mean, like Patrick Williams, they gave him a big contract. He's untradeable now, in my opinion, unless you give up assets. So, they still got some issues, but boy, they got off the really big contracts that they have. And Giddey's young still. He's 25 years old, and Kobe White's young. And Buzelis, I missed him. Buzelis looks like he's going to be a player. Had a really nice block on Flip tonight. So he looks like he's going to be a player. So I would be cautiously optimistic if I were, a Bulls fan. They got a long way to go, but at least they're, to me, going in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to call it a night. And for those watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. You can also follow us on X at Jazz Smack, and we will talk to everybody later.